Hello all, welcome to the new Simply Put series by Kalam IAS Academy. This is Priyanka Mahapatra, faculty at Kalam IAS. So today we'll be having a discussion on the newspaper dated 6th of March 2024. So coming to the text and the context section of the Hindu newspaper, two articles were important. First is regarding the Maharashtra's latest Maratha quota law. This we have already discussed in the previous New Simply Put series video, and the link for this video discussion will be provided in the description box. Then we will come to the healthcare centers, the grim situation of healthcare centers in India. Then coming to the explain section of the Indian Express newspaper, three articles were important. First is regarding the methane sat, the satellite for methane emissions, for detecting the methane emissions. Second is regarding the fourth mass coral reef bleaching, and third is regarding the INS Jatayu. So these are the four articles that we are going to discuss today, which is displayed on your screen. So the first article that we are going to discuss today is about the methane sat. It is a satellite that will track and measure the methane emissions at a global level. In fact, it will name and shame the methane emitters at a global level. And why this is in news? Because on Monday, March 4, it was launched aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from California. But this spacecraft is not the first spacecraft to identify and quantify the methane emissions. So what are the other satellites which are responsible for tracking, for measurement of the methane concentrations in the atmosphere? European Space Agency's Sentinel 5P satellite. Okay, and another is GHG SAT constellation, which includes a number of satellites that are used to track the methane emissions from a variety of sources like oil and gas facilities, landfills, and agricultural fields. Right? So, first we need to track this methane emissions, and why we need to track this methane emission in the first place. Why are we concerned about tracking and measuring the methane emissions? Because we have studied in our environment classes that it is a very strong greenhouse gas. It's an invisible gas. It's very strong greenhouse gas in the sense that it is the second largest contributor to the global warming after carbon dioxide, right? And it is responsible for 30% of the global heating since the Industrial Revolution. According to UNEP, over the period of 20 years, methane is 80% more potent at warming than carbon dioxide. Okay, and also this methane contributes to the formation of ground level ozone. So what is this ground level ozone? So there is a ozone in the stratosphere which is the good ozone because it protects us from the UV rays. But this ground level ozone is a pollutant. It's a harmful pollutant. Okay, and it is very crucial to track this ground level ozone also. Okay, it's a colorless and highly irritating gas that forms just above the Earth's surface. According to 2022 report, exposure to this ground level ozone could be contributing to 1 million premature deaths every year. Okay, so this is the gravity of the ground level ozone, and the methane helps in the production of the ground level ozone just above the Earth's surface. Then who is the main culprit for the methane emissions? 40% of all the human caused methane emissions come from the fossil fuel operations. So this is the main culprit. Then comes the next question, that who has developed this satellite? It is developed by a US based non-profit environmental advocacy group, that is the Environmental Defense Fund. Okay, and it has partnered with Howard University. Okay, so this you need to remember from your prelims point of view again. And how does it work? It will orbit the Earth 15 times a day, thus monitoring the gas and the oil sector. And it will create a large amount of data which will tell us that how much methane is coming from where, who is responsible for that, and are those emissions going up or down over the time. And the data collected will be made public for free in near real time. Okay, then comes the question that why there was a need to send another satellite when we were already having satellites to track the methane emission. because the other satellites, the previous satellites, they were not able to track the methane concentrations in the smallest range possible. They were doing only the superficial job. They were only tracking some important areas like oil and gas sector. They were not able to track all the places which is emitting the methane emissions. Therefore, according to International Energy Agency, global methane emissions are about 70% higher than the levels reported by the national governments, because the national governments, they are relying on the previous satellites only to report the emissions, but actually the emissions are far more. Okay, according to IEA, it is 70% higher than what is reported by the national governments. So we needed a satellite like methane sat, which could track the differences in methane concentration as small as 3 parts per billion in the atmosphere, which enables it to pick up the smaller emission sources. So this is the main difference between the previous satellites and this satellite, right? And it has also got a wide camera view of about 200 kilometer by 200 kilometer, allowing it to identify the larger emitters, so-called super emitters, right? And all the data are analyzed using the cloud computing AI technology, which is developed by Google. So this company Google is the mission partner, and the data will be made public through the Google Earth Engine platform. Here you can see it in the picture, how it will be made public. Okay, and what is the significance of the methane emissions? Because more than 150 countries, they have signed this global methane pledge in 2021, which is aiming to cut the collective methane emissions by at least 30% from 2020 levels by 2030. This also you need to remember from your prelims point of view. So this methane sat becomes very important from your prelims point of view. It can be a expected question this year. Then we come to the second article about the INS Jatayu, which is India's new naval base in Lakshadweep. Okay, so why this is a news? Because Naval Detachment Minicoy, which was there since 1980s, now it will be commissioned as INS Jatayu. It will be a upgraded naval base. And how it is significant? It will mark an important milestone in the India's Navy resolve to augment, to enhance the security infrastructure in the strategic islands like Lakshadweep. Okay, and where is this Minicoy situated? It is the southernmost atoll of the Lakshadweep archipelago. Okay, and this INS Jatayu, it will be the country's second naval base in the Lakshadweep Islands. The first base on the islands is INS Dweep Rakshak in Kavarati, which was commissioned in 2012. Okay, so this is the second naval base in the Lakshadweep, and it was commissioned days after the joint inauguration that was done between the Prime Ministers of India and Mauritius of the airstrip and the jetty that India is planning to build on the Mauritian island of Agalega off the coast of Africa in the Western Indian Ocean, that we have discussed already in the previous New Simply Put series. So then coming to the significance of this INS Jatayu, because Lakshadweep is of high strategic importance to India because of its location in the Indian Ocean. And this Minicoy Island, it is between the vital sea lines of communication, which is the world's main maritime highways. That includes the 8-degree channel between the Minicoy and Maldives, and the 9-degree channel between the Minicoy and the main cluster of the Lakshadweep Islands. So this 8-degree channel and 9-degree channel is very, very important from your prelims point of view, because this has already come as question. And Lakshadweep Island will be also vulnerable to the marine pollution because of so much of transaction, so much of communication happening. It is the world's main maritime highways. Okay, and this INS Jatayu, it will also enhance the operational reach of the Indian Navy. It will facilitate the anti-piracy, anti-narcotics operation in the Western Arabian Sea, and augment the Indian Navy's capability as the first responder in the region. Okay, and it will also extend the Navy's reach and operational surveillance capabilities at a time when India is seeking to counter the growing Chinese influence in the Indian Ocean region. So this is how the Lakshadweep is of great strategic importance, and the INS Jatayu, it will be helping us reach the operational surveillance capabilities, right, of the Indian Navy. Then we come to the third article, that is world is on the brink of fourth mass coral reef bleaching event. Okay, so according to US NOAA, the world is on the verge of fourth mass coral bleaching event, which could see wide swaths of tropical reefs die, including the parts of Australia's Great Barrier Reef. So first let's answer that what is corals, what is coral reef. So corals are polyps, they are animals which live in a symbiotic relationship with a tiny algae which is called zooxanthellae. And these algae, they are in a symbiotic relationship, they are in a give and take relationship. Okay, so how it is a give and take relationship, how they are mutually dependent on each other. This algae will be providing the corals with food and oxygen through photosynthesis, and in return the coral, it will provide them a safe place to live in. Okay, and this coral reef, they are limestone structures formed by thousands of tiny coral animals, and they are mainly found in the tropical climates. So here you can see it in the map. What are the places in India which are rich in coral reefs? So there are four places: Gulf of Kutch, Lakshadweep, Gulf of Mannar, and Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So this becomes also very important from your prelims point of view. This has been asked already in the prelims. Then we come to the important question, that what is coral bleaching? So bleaching means turning white, losing its color, and that happens because of the loss of the zooxanthellae, because zooxanthellae, the algae, gives the color to it. And how does it happen? When corals, they are exposed to stressful conditions like high temperatures, pollution, or changes in the water's chemistry, they expel the zooxanthellae, they expel the algae attached to them. So without the algae, what will happen? The coral will lose its color, it will turn white, and hence the term bleaching. And the corals cannot live very long in this state because they will be devoid of food and nutrition that comes from the algae through photosynthesis. So they cannot live very long in this state. But also you need to remember that coral bleaching does not necessarily mean that there is an end of the reef. If the stress factor like high temperature or pollutant or whatever, if the stressor is removed in time, then the zooxanthellae can come back and the corals can recover. Okay, so this was all about the coral bleaching you should know. So let's now come to the findings of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So it is saying that world is already on the verge of the fourth mass coral bleaching event. The three had occurred after 1998, 2010 and 2014. And for this event to be called global, there should be widespread bleaching happening in three ocean basins like Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean and Indian Ocean. Right? And the last global mass coral bleaching event ran from 2014 to 17, during which the Great Barrier Reef lost at least one third of its corals. In fact, at Australia's Great Barrier Reef, it has seen 6 localized bleaching events since 1998. Okay, and during this mass coral bleaching, 15% of the world's reef, it will see die-offs. Okay, and this year mass coral bleaching is turning to be more worse. We are already seeing the consequences, we are already seeing the effects. Following the northern hemisphere summer last year, the Caribbean registered the worst bleaching, coral bleaching. Southern hemisphere is bleaching all over the place. Right? And coral bleaching is accentuated by the El Nino climate phenomena, which leads to warmer ocean waters. We just now studied that it is because one of the factor is higher ocean temperatures, and that happens because of the El Nino event. And already we are witnessing that the average temperatures over 1.5 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels. Right? So this climate change, this global warming is compounding the mass coral bleaching event. Okay? And a rise of 1.5 5 degrees Celsius is believed to be the tipping point for mass coral die-offs, with scientists estimating that 90% of the world's coral will be lost. So this was all about the fourth mass coral reef bleaching, which is important from your mains point of view and also prelims point of view. Then we come to the fourth article, that the health centers of India, are they really collapsing? This is actually an abstract, a paper which got published in the Hindu. Okay, but some facts I saw which were very, very important. You can write it down in your answers, in the answers which is related to the health, the challenges in health infrastructure. Okay, you can use these points there. Okay, which is there in your paper 2. Health is mentioned in your paper 2, GS paper 2 syllabus, right? So first of all, let's discuss that why health centers matter at all. Because they are the lowest rung of the India's public health system. Okay, 94% of these centers are located in the rural areas, and they are expected to offer accessible and affordable primary care. And they are around 2 lakh in number, and they are conceptualized as a 3-tier system. Sub-centers, later named as health and wellness centers, public health centers, PHCs, and community health center. But reports show that less than 20% of these health centers, they're actually functioning effectively. And what will happen as the consequence when these health centers that are offering accessible and affordable primary care, they are not functioning effectively? It will push the disadvantaged communities into poverty to rely on expensive exploitative private health care. Last year economic survey, it showed that how in the absence of proper insurance and affordable services, almost half of all the health spending in India is still paid by patients themselves. And therefore, it is pushing many households into poverty because of the higher out-of-pocket expenditure. Please write it down in the comment section, how much is the out-of-pocket expenditure in India. Okay, so this pushing of many households into poverty is leading to social and health inequity. Okay, so we should be expanding and improving the healthcare centers in India. And the localized healthcare is the ultimate solution. It is a much better way to deal with most of the health. Then we come to the issues in the healthcare. First is regarding the composition of the healthcare budget. The allocation even today, which is in 2022-23, it is 1.9%, and this hasn't changed since a decade. It's almost the same as the decade ago in 2013-14, which was 1.7%. So here we can know how we are neglecting the healthcare budget. Then comes the National Health Mission share, which is shrinking from 69% to 44%. Then comes the infrastructure. The centers, the healthcare centers are grossly underutilized because of the lack of staff, because of the staff absenteeism, and because of that, the number of patients per day is low because the services are limited and the quality is of poor nature. For example, the Bihar's sub-centers, they're still trapped in the older pattern where auxiliary nurse midwife, they're focusing mainly on family planning targets, motivating people to go for sterilization. Then other challenges is that irregular flow of funds, lack of toilet facilities, no transport or residential facilities, no drugs or functional testing equipments. There is social discrimination seen also in the healthcare centers. Upper caste doctors, they are having very bad attitude towards the marginalized communities. The upper caste families, they are routinely disrespecting the Dalit ANMs, auxiliary nurse midwives. Again, there is a gender discrimination. How? Female nurses and the staff members, they are running the district hospital whole-handedly. They are not being assisted by their men counterparts.
They're doing the bulk of the effort, while the men in the senior position, they're taking advantage of their seniority. And the ASHA workers, they are working in grim environments where the centers are lacking running water and toilets. So these points you should be updating in your notebook whenever you have the scope of writing the answer related to the healthcare. You should be mentioning these points, right? You can take help of the Bihar sub-center. You can write about the economic survey. Okay, you can write about the composition of the healthcare budget. Okay, so this is how your answer will be more rewarding. Okay, so this was all about today's discussion, and the short notes of this video discussion will be provided to you in our Telegram channel, that is Kalama Academy, and the link for joining our channel will be provided in the description box. So do join the channel for the important posts and updates. Okay, then see you tomorrow. Goodbye. Thank you so much.